Hello everyone, in this video we are going to create the GraphQL endpoint using Spring Boot application. So let's open the Spring Initializer portal. So the project is Maven project, language is Java, Spring Boot version. We are going to select 3.3.6 and the group name, we can have the group name like GraphQL example. Okay. And the name also we can have name also we can keep it as GraphQL example. Let's have the description as demo project for Spring Boot GraphQL, and package name is GraphQL dot example dot demo. Okay, so and we are going to packaging as a var. Java version is 17. So now we are going to add the dependencies. So what are the dependencies we need? We know that first for developing a REST endpoint we need the web dependency, so we are going to add the same for this project also. And for GraphQL, for development of GraphQL endpoint you need only one dependency called GraphQL Spring for GraphQL. This is the first one. Select the first one, and I'm going to use the JPA for storing the data into the database and also for fetching the data from the database. So let's add the JPA dependency, Lombok dependency for the getters, setters, and constructors. And we need to add one more dependency for MySQL driver dependency. Okay, that's it. Let's generate the project. So extract all, extract. Okay, copy the project path, go to Eclipse, file, import, type Maven, existing Maven projects. Next, enter the path of the project you downloaded from the Spring Initializer portal. Click finish. So the project is getting downloaded, and also all the dependencies we declared in the pom.xml also is getting downloaded into the class path. So let's wait for a moment until the download is complete. It's complete now. Okay, let's go to pom.xml. Let's see what are the dependencies are present. So we have Spring Data JPA, GraphQL, Web, and MySQL driver on Lombok. We are going to create a endpoint using the REST API first. We are going to create an entity called student. This student object will hold the data from the student table from the MySQL database. Okay, so we are going to have three endpoints. The first endpoint will store the data into the student table, which is the post mapping, and the second endpoint is the get mapping, get endpoint, which fetch all the data from the student table. The third one is also the get endpoint, but it will fetch the data based on the department name. So for the given department name, it will fetch all the records which is matching with the department name, and those records will be returned as a list. Okay, so these three endpoints we are going to create now. So go to source main Java, right click, new, package dot endit. Okay, and then a package for the service class. This is the package for repository, and one more package for the controller. That's it. Okay, so now we are going to develop only the REST endpoint. So after completing that, I will show you how to develop the GraphQL endpoint. Okay, so under the entity, go to entity, right click, new, class name as student, annotate this class, student class with entity, and table name is student, and then no argument constructor, all argument constructor, authority of data constructor for getters and setters. Okay, private integer roll number, private string name, private string department, private integer mark. Okay, so declare this roll number as a primary key. It's generated value. So the Spring Data JPA will generate the primary key, which is the roll number automatically. It will increment the value by 1 for every time we are trying to post the the student object through the postman. Generated value strategy is identity. We are going to use the generated type, which is identity. So for MySQL, the strategy should be identity. Okay, so based on the database, the strategy type will be get changed. Okay, now we created the student class. Now create the repository. So right click on the repository package, new interface, student repository. Extend this student repository with the JPA repository. So here the object is student, primary key is an integer. Okay, so let's add the student object here. That's it. Now create the service class. Right click, new class, student service. So annotate this class with the authorate of service annotation, and then student repository, because we are going to fetch the data, we are going to interact with the database, right? So through the repository class, we are going to interact with the MySQL database. So student repository, annotate this variable with the auto wire, and then so first we are going to insert the data into the database. So for that, we need to create a one method to save the student object into the student table. So public student add student, the input parameter is the student object, and this will student repository will save the data into the database. Okay, so now we can return this so that we can see the student object in the JSON response once it is added. Okay, so and then create one more endpoint for fetching all the student records from the student table. Get all students. Okay, return student repository dot find all. Okay, and then one more method for fetching the student records for the given department name. So get student by department. So input will be the department. So we are going to pass the department name to this method, and this will return all the matching records from the student table, which will be converted into student objects. Okay, list of student objects. So return student repository find by, B should be in caps, department. Here D should be in caps, the variable which we are using for lookup, right? That variable first letter should be in caps as per the GPA specification. And then pass this department variable to this method. Okay, so we need to add this method declaration in the student repository interface. We're done with the student service class. So now create an endpoint in the controller, new class student controller. Okay, so annotate this class with the REST controller, and then auto where the service class here, student service where. Okay, so we are going to have the post mapping first. So public student add student. So we are going to pass the student object as an input to this method. So student. Okay, so from here we are going to call the service class method add student. Okay, so this is going to be a post mapping. So post mapping, let's declare the endpoint name as a student. Okay, add the student object, and then we are passing the we are passing the student object through Postman, right? So Postman client, we are going to pass the student object. So we need to have the at the rate of request body annotation in the argument list. Okay, then let's return this. So now we are good with the post mapping, and let's create another endpoint for fetching all the student records from the table. So public list of student get all students, return student service dot get all student. Okay, and then it's a get mapping, right? So the endpoint for this one is students. Okay, so this method will invoke will fetch all the student records from the table, and it will return the that object, the student as a list. Okay, so let's have one more endpoint. Public list student get student by department, string department, return student service dot get student by department. Okay, so here this is also a get mapping, and for this one the endpoint will be student student slash department slash, and then the department name we are going to pass along with a URL. Okay, so as we are passing the variable as part of the endpoint, we need to declare that, we need to specify that with a annotation called a path variable in the argument list. Okay, okay, now we are good. Now we are good with the controller class also. So now let's go ahead and add the connection parameters for the MySQL database. So these are all my MySQL database connection params, and these are all the JPA parameters properties, JPA properties. Okay, so this so and specify the server port name, server port number as a 8081. Let's start the service now. Okay, the service is started at port number 8081. Okay, so this is the student table. We don't have any table currently in the student database, in the student table. Okay, so let's test our REST controller post endpoint first. We need to specify the student object inside the request body, right? So let's go ahead and click raw JSON. Okay, so what are the values we have? Is triple E mark 89. Okay, let's execute this endpoint. Okay, let's check the database. Okay, so the value got inserted into the student table successfully. So okay, let's add a few more student object. Ram Siva 99, triple E 99. Roll number 3 Varun CSC 68. Okay, now we can test the next endpoint. Let's try to fetch all the student records from the table. Get map, it should be a get method. Okay, it's a get mapping 8081 students. Okay, so there are 3 records in the table, so the same 3 records successfully fetched through this endpoint, students endpoint. So now we will fetch the data based on the department name, student record based on the department. So this is the endpoint we have: http localhost 8081 students department triple E, students department triple E. And so in the database we have there are totally 3 records. In these 3 records, 2 records are for triple E, and only 1 record is for CSC. Okay, let's test this now. Okay, we got 2 records. Let's change it to CSC. it should return only one record. Okay, so our all three REST endpoints are working fine now. Now let's try to add the one more endpoint for updating the student record in the table. Okay, so public student update student. So we are passing the student object to this method. So it will return student repository dot save. So it will try to find out the student object, I mean the student record for the given the primary key, which is the roll number in the existing table. If the record is found, then it will insert the data. Okay, to insert the new record. That is how the save method will be working in the from the update context. Okay, so let's try to implement the uh, endpoint for this update method in the controller class. Update student. So I'm passing the student object as a parameter. So we need to annotate that parameter with the request body in the argument list, and it should be update method. Okay, let's restart the service. Okay, service has been started. So, update student put method, and I'm trying to update the value of so the RAM. So the first record is the roll number 1, where name is RAM, department is triple, mark is 89. So I wanted to update the mark from 89 to 95. So 1 RAM triple 95. Okay. Okay, it seems the value got updated. Let's check the database. 1 RAM triple 95. Okay, so the update endpoint also working fine. Okay, in the next video, we are going to see how to implement the GraphQL endpoint in the same Spring Boot application. Thank you.